We should be live. And we're going. Hit the lights, McKenna. Do it to him.
Welcome to the Detox Podcast. Yeah. Yes, welcome to the Detox Pod where we don't know what the hell is going on. Yeah, welcome to the Detox Podcast. Yeah.
Gotta love it. McKenna's on the lights. McKenna's on the lights and the sound. I don't know if my guest is able to hear all that nonsense, but it's fun nonetheless. You guys got to hear it. What's going on, D-Bags? Hope you guys are doing well. Back at it again with another episode, the 110th episode of the Detox Podcast. I'm your host, Darren Rita. Feel free to connect with me at any of the links down below. Got music down there. Got a bunch of other goodies down there, website, all that fun stuff. So check that out. And if you're new here and you enjoy music, podcasts, or comedy, do consider subscribing because we got a whole lot of that around here as well. Now, I mentioned I got a guest this week. He's a really talented guy who I'm excited to get into talking with. But before I got to talk to you guys a little bit about car insurance. These days, it seems as if you're able to do more and more from home. So while you're at home, while you're saving money on your car insurance, your hometown agency, Kenosha Auto Insurance, has specialized for years in simple, hassle-free car insurance using the latest in touch-free technology to help you and your family get the best rates. So what are you waiting for? Give them a call today, 262-448-4141. That's 448-4141. The website's kenoshains.com. One last time, that's 262-448-4141. Give them a call. Tell them D-Rita Detox sent you. The worst that could happen is you will get the best rates. So with all that out of the way, I am pumped to introduce you guys to my guest this week. He's a music producer and marketer who's been working to help artists grow and monetize a hardcore fan base. And I hope that we can get some tidbits of knowledge and learn some stuff along the way today through this conversation from him. So let's give a wet detox welcome to my man Twisted Coaching. And we got the clap track bumper.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for
How
having
are
me
you,
on.
man? Yeah,
I'm
man.
doing well.
Thank you for being here, dude. For real. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. I'm always happy to jump on another podcast. I love podcasts. We're talking a little bit about this. I listen to a ton of different podcasts. They're one of my main media inputs, I guess, for myself. So I'm always happy to be on one.
That's awesome, man. I'm excited. Have you been on many podcasts prior to
Yeah,
this?
I've been on, I don't even know how many now, but probably around 5 to 10. So I've been on
Okay.
a bunch. Yeah.
So you know what you're doing around here. I like that. I also got to say, man, thank you big time. It was totally unexpected. When you posted one of my songs not too long ago, and I had no idea. I think I'd followed you a while back. I liked some of the stuff you were posting, some of the content, and kind of the just the way that you were going about trying to give artists knowledge that could help them. And then little did I know, a few weeks later you were checking out a couple of my songs, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy, he liked my song, he posted it. So I really appreciate that, man, and I'm super thankful for that.
Absolutely, man. I love giving back just to the people that follow me, that support me. And, I think I noticed that you had probably liked one of my posts, and I just happened to see that you had a new song out, and I thought it was dope, and put it up on Music Monday. And hopefully, I got you a little bit more exposure. That's the whole goal for that, is to just kind of share what I've been listening to with all the people that are following.
I appreciate that.
Excuse the police going by.
The police, man, they're after me. Maybe they're in the wrong spot. You're in Philly, right? That's
Yes,
where they're
sir.
at.
Yep. In
Philly
Philadelphia.
can get crazy sometimes with with the
They
police. and
definitely
whatnot.
can. Yeah.
So you mentioned Music Monday, and I classified you as both a music producer and a marketer. Do you think that's a fair assessment of what it is that you do? I mean, you're a marketing specialist, sort of social media guy. Like, how would you describe what it is exactly that you do?
Yeah, well, so I'm a coach. I work with artists one-on-one, and I kind of adapt my skill set to whatever it is that they really need. But really the three focuses are on marketing and branding, really figuring out who they are and how they're representing themselves to people, what their message is, who they're targeting. And then it's taking all of that and then applying it to social media. So actually creating and optimizing their social media presence so that they're able to grow more quickly, get more of the actual right people in, they're going to turn into their fans. And then phase three is then monetizing that fan base that they've grown. So that's actually kind of what I do with my program, and I'm also a music producer. So I've been making music now for over 11 years, and that's something that I do. It's been like my hobby, I would say. It's something that I've done consistently. It's something that, like, I have a lot of different things that I love. I was talking to you about chess, and I have lots of little things. Music has always been that one that's super consistent. And right now, one of my like main hobbies though is with the coaching and everything. And music is just sort of like that other thing that I do just for fun. I like to make music, but it's also I like to tie it in with why I'm now working with artists and everything, because I know this industry so well. I've been in it myself for so long now. So that's kind of why I decided to go down this route.
That's what I was gonna ask, is kind of what it was that led you from maybe, doing music. You said it was more of a hobby, right? It wasn't necessarily something like you wanted to pursue, or was it?
It is, and it's not at the same time. Like,
Okay.
the thing is that it's not like I don't want to be known as just a producer. That's the thing, right? Like, I want to, my end goal a couple years from now is to work with artists on the marketing, the branding, the monetizing, and the music, right? Be able to work with them in the studio as a producer as well, and really tie all of those things in together. So I'm kind of working up to that point. And right now I'm really focusing on the more social media, the marketing, all that kind of stuff. But it is definitely like, it's my biggest passion, more like of a personal passion. I don't like want to use the word hobby because that makes it sound like it's more of like a for fun thing, but it's not
Yeah.
just a for fun thing. I do want to have a career in it at some point. It's just I don't want to be just a producer. So I want to be a producer and tie in all these other things as well.
Very cool. When you do producing, are you doing producing like a traditional like hip hop producer where they make a bunch of beats, put it on YouTube, they got a beat store and all that kind of stuff, or is it yours like, it's more like people and you work for individually, and you're like, well, let's craft something together type of thing.
I've done both. So I actually have another Instagram account, Twisted X Prod, which is it's my
Okay.
older Instagram account, and that was what you were kind of talking about, posting beats, as well as I actually had a YouTube channel as well,
Oh, cool.
and that was more like what you're talking about, posting beats, putting it. I had a BeatStars account, I actually still have it, and selling beats, all that kind of stuff, and even like working one-on-one with artists and even some people that I know personally, just working with them. So kind of both sides of things. And then I was doing that for quite a while, and it was fun, but I wanted to kind of take things to the next level. And I love teaching and I love working with people and helping them and kind of breaking down this process of like marketing, branding, social media, and monetizing, all that stuff.
Mhm.
So it was sort of just a natural next step for me.
That's really cool, man. I kind of I enjoy that, like your like kind of hearing your thought process on how you got from each step. I thought that's kind of interesting. When it comes to the marketing aspect of things, and how you decided that that's something that really interested you,
Mhm.
where did you start? Like, where did you begin to start kind of digging into these sort of topics and start learning about marketing and everything that it entails?
Yeah. So it's funny because a long time ago I didn't want to, like, at all. I was like, I just wanted to make music, and I wanted my music to be good enough that I didn't have to market it. I didn't need to. Like, that's what I kind of thought. I know a lot of people think that,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it just wasn't working. I was going to Drexel here in Philadelphia for entrepreneurship, and I was like, okay, what am I doing? Like, I just want to focus on music. I'm not enjoying this at all. So I ended up dropping out just to focus on music, and
Mm-hmm.
I was doing that for a while. I ended up getting a job. I was hating that, and I just was not making any progress. So I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. And that's when I was like, I'm just going to learn, like, dive all into the business stuff, into the marketing, dive into all that. And really the first thing was, so I took this course actually by MIDI Money, which is for producers, basically teaching them how to set up sales funnels and to sell their beats. So that was really the first big thing. But until then, like, I had just been researching different ways that you can sell beats, as well as even just like learning how to really set up and optimize your YouTube. Like, I spent a lot of like hours just looking stuff up on YouTube, watching different videos. Doing the MIDI Money course was like the really big step for me, where that's when I really started getting into it. And that's when I got a bunch of books now that I have over here on my bookshelf, about marketing, about specifically music industry, music business, branding, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's really cool. Who is like, in somebody maybe in the mainstream that you would take as a great example of somebody who's like doing everything right, or it seems that way with their marketing? Maybe somebody in the mainstream that people would be able to kind of point at and be like, look, that guy, he's the example for this thing and this thing and this thing.
A great question. Um, I think Lil Nas X definitely is. He's fantastic at marketing.
Yeah.
Uh, even his TikTok videos, like they're just so well put together and so interesting, and they really grab your attention, and they're speaking to his audience in such the perfect way. Like I think he really, you can see like from the amount of success that he's had and the continuous success. Because it kind of, I thought when he first like blew up, I was like, oh whatever, like he's cool, but you know, it's just the like the song is kind of cool, like it's a different thing. So maybe he'll probably die off, but no, he's stayed around, and I'm glad to see that. And I think that really ties in with how good he is at marketing.
Yeah, I think with him especially, I talked about this. I think last week I kind of mentioned it a little bit. The reason I think he's so great at marketing is because I think he understands the internet culture a little bit more. Where he came, part of his come up was that he had run like a couple different meme pages, I believe. When Old Town Road, so he knew other people that made meme pages and had memes and stuff like that, and so like he gets the jokes, and he's okay with being in on the joke and being a part of the joke sometimes. And then when Old Town Road came out, from what I heard, that he like basically used all those connections of all these different people that had all these different meme accounts as well as his own, and basically just had every meme be playing to Old Town Road. And that was a big part of helping boost that song, as well as it being a catchy song and being super popular with people. I mean, I liked the song, younger people liked the song, older people, everybody, cross genre song, crazy. But like you mentioned, his TikToks and everything from his TikToks to his tweets all seem, not only do they seem very like they get right to like the hook immediately, but like you said, they also speak right to his audience. So it's like, I think he knows, like, my audience, they're memers. We all love the jokes. They all like, so what does he do? Almost every tweet you see from him, or every TikTok of him reacting to a tweet or something, it's like rooted in comedy, but he also makes these great songs on top of it. So like doesn't have to take himself too seriously. So it's like it's really hard to kind of knock somebody like that when they're not even taking themselves super seriously. So I think that's a reason that he's been as successful as he has been.
Yeah, and like you said, like, he's extremely consistent. Like every tweet is like that. Every TikTok is like that. Yeah. And it never. The thing is that if you're a brand, right? If you have multiple different sort of ways that you're going or feelings that you're giving off, people are going to catch on to that, and they might not be like, oh, like they're doing all these different things, but it's just not going to connect with them as well. So it's extremely important to be consistent, while at the same time still remaining authentic. You can tell that he's a funny guy and that he likes the jokes. And like you said, that he has all these meme pages and stuff. So this is just a part of him, and he's figured out that thing, and he's been able to just basically take that and put it into his Instagram, or his TikTok and his tweets and everything, and really take that and make it super consistent and make it work super well.
Yeah, and on top of it, like I said, he's got fantastic music. So I mean, that's the music alone. He's one of the, where his quality is now. Especially, I'm excited for his new album to come out. He's probably somebody that could ease up on the promotion if he wanted to, but he doesn't, and that's the reason he's going number one, every time he drops, which is crazy. So I think that's nuts. I also wanted to kind of touch base on with you about something I saw recently. I think this was from you. You had said that being organized, this is from a while back, that being organized won't hurt your creativity, and that you used to feel like it might, and that I think you're not alone in that, where I know I've had conversations with other artists across from me here at this studio, where they've expressed to me how they don't like to plan out sessions or write consistently. They like to let it come to them and figure things out that way. What is your reasoning behind that statement of being organized isn't going to hurt your creativity, and that maybe artists should consider becoming a little bit more organized, a little bit more diligent in their the way they go about their creative process and making things, whether it's marketing, social media, or if it's the music itself?
Yeah, organization, like I think it gets a bad rep. Like people think that it needs to be like, oh, you're constantly like everything's super neat, and you have to find what works for you, right? But at the same time, it needs to be disciplined. Like, and I know exactly what you mean, where you're like, oh, like artists will only write when they feel like writing. The problem is that, like, what happens when you don't feel like writing for months on end, right?
Yeah.
But if you kind of make yourself write, you're like, okay, you know what, every day 30 minutes I'm going to write for 30 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
Sure, you might have bad days, right? But eventually you're going to start to even out. And some of it is just practice. Like as you practice being a little bit more organized, you're going to start to figure out the different ways that you can make your day a little bit better. You can schedule everything. You can write things out, like whatever it is that you end up wanting to do in a way that's going to work for you, but that is also then going to optimize your time. It's going to optimize your output. It's going to make everything just a little bit easier. So it's not like you have to be a specific way. It's don't like look up online like how to be organized or something like that and follow that to a T, because that's what they're doing. You want to find what's going to work for you and then figure out how you can make that more efficient and more effective. So there are two different things I don't think people like really separate too much, is like the difference between being efficient and effective. Efficient, right, is like how quickly you can get something done. Effective is what it is that you're actually doing, right? It doesn't really matter. Like if you could be extremely ineffective and where you're like constantly doing things that aren't actually useful to you, things that aren't actually going to help you, but you do them very efficiently. So it's kind of a different thing, and you want to find the right balance between the two of them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's true, because if you're doing a bunch of stuff that isn't going to do you any good, but you can do it very quickly and you can do it consistently, that doesn't help you. That's the definition of insanity almost to a T, where I'm going to keep doing the same thing even though it hasn't been helping me, and expecting it to change. Now, I'm someone too who, for me, how I go about creating song, I have way too many songs where like I'm writing all the time. Like I'm always writing, I'm always recording. I mean, I built my own studio and stuff like that, so that helps. It's a little bit more accessible. I know some guys like have to, some artists just have to be in the studio to write, which I don't personally. For me, it's like coming to me like throughout the whole day, whether I'm there or not. But I know some people is like that. So for me, what I always would suggest people is like, either figure out a way to get your own, whether it's a small setup that just gets the job done, whatever it is. You create a space where you can go, and that space facilitates creativity. And it's kind of like what you were saying about the 30 minutes a day. Like that's a space, that's a time in the day. You can do the same thing with like physical spaces. And I had a conversation a while back on the show with a friend of mine, Joe Diamond, who's a extremely talented magician, and he has to write his stuff and his acts and things of that nature, and he talks about it. I forget, he had a specific name for it, but basically it boils down to that: having a space where you go to, where like you go there to do that thing. So then just by physically being in that place, your mind is going to start like loosening up to the idea of like, I'm gonna write some, I got some bars I got to get off today, or I got a hook that's coming to me, or wow, I'm listening to these beats and this is going on. And I do think that there's a lot of power in showing up every single day. And like you said, there's going to be days that aren't super great and super productive, but I think by just doing it over and over again, if I write 100, let's say in a form for rap, like if I was writing 100 bars a day or something like that, maybe they're good. Some of them are going to suck. A lot of them are going to suck. But if I'm getting a couple that are solid every day, I got a great 16 in a couple of weeks. Like, that's all it comes down to. And so like, and that's maybe a little bit of an exaggeration with bars specifically, but that's kind of what it comes down to. You can kind of control your creativity a little bit more like that. And I feel like it helps artists when you can be releasing more consistent. I mean, I don't know if you noticed that. Is that a big issue for maybe people that you work with or people that reach out to you, is that, they really want to make it, but they drop like maybe one song a year, if that? Because I know a lot of people like that.
Definitely, yeah. And it is hard. Like, I get it. I've been doing this a long time myself, and there was been massive periods of time where I didn't make anything, didn't drop anything for a long period of time. But the thing is that people's attention spans these days are very, very short, and people forget things very quickly. So if you're not kind of constantly out there, they're going to forget about it. Even if you come back in 6 months or a year or whatever, like, first of all, like, why should they remember you? That's one thing that, like, I don't think people think about very often. People kind of expect that, like, oh, if I put my stuff out, like, people are going to care about it. Yeah. No, you need to give them a reason to care about it. They need to know, like, what is it in it for me that I'm going to get out of listening to this music, or even to a podcast or whatever it is. Like, they want to know, like, why is this cool? Why is it going to be like beneficial for me?
Yeah.
And it also, like, if you're not consistent with it, they're just going to forget about it. They're just not going to, they're going to find somebody else that's really cool, find somebody else that they resonate with, find somebody else that they connect with that does give them that benefit that they're looking for. So it's extremely important. And even with outside of social media stuff, just to be consistent.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's something too, and kind of going back a second to where you said, find what works for you. I know for
Mhm.
me with social media, it's something again where I'm not in love. There's some aspects of social media that I really love.
Mhm.
Obviously when you're doing, I feel like music, or anything creative now is kind of through the lens of content and social media. So like I kind of just accept it where I think I do think there's a lot of positives that come out of it. I know a lot of artists and in all aspects, not just music, kind of roll their
Mhm.
eyes that they have to use social media in these things. And I do see their point because I know that like I definitely am frustrated with certain parts of it where I don't want to be posting every day. I don't want to be doing. I get that. But like you said, you got to find what works for you, and I know what I've found has been I basically did a couple of runs. I did last year. I did a run where I did 9 weeks straight, released singles, and I had all this music ready to go and all this stuff, and I wanted to release a single a week. And part of that was I didn't want to do what you just described, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna post my music and then that's it, and then a week later I'll post my music, or 6 months later I'll just post my music. Like I don't want to just post my music. So I had basically had it set up where I wanted to post twice in between every single song, so that like when you like slid down my Instagram, it would have all the singles lined up on one side, which I personally just liked the way that looked. And then it also was a way for me to hold myself accountable, where it's like, all right, I know I got another single coming out this week. I gotta post I gotta make sure I'm doing something that, here's this part of my life, or here's just something fun. Just give people something other than the fact that you do that. You're a human being at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You might be an artist, might be a musician, whatever, but we're humans. So you want to kind of give people something else, at least in my experience. So I did that I've kind of just stuck with that actually. I've got some new music coming out soon, so I'm going to be posting again on my Instagram, again, much more frequently. But I tried to, even when I wasn't releasing music, try to post on my story somewhat regularly to interact with people, because I know it's something like you said, where if you go away for a while, people's attention spans it's like that, and they're on to the next thing. So
Hmm. Yeah, it happens very, very quickly. Like it's honestly astonishing. At one point it was over 2,000 followers on my old Instagram, and I stopped posting for, it was like maybe only three months, something like that. And I got back and I put up a couple of different posts, and I was posting every day for, it was probably 2 weeks, and I lost like almost all of my engagement.
damn.
Even after being consistent for that time and putting up, I was posting every day for 2 weeks. I put up 14 posts, and I think I went from getting maybe 100 to 300 likes per post to getting 20 to 30.
Damn. Yeah.
It drops off very quickly, and it took me a really long time to build that back up again. It took me another 4 months or so of posting like constantly to get back to that point. So the consistency is, even outside of it, out of social media and outside of like anything, like with the writing, right? Like just being consistent in your life, you're going to notice huge benefits. You're going to get better at writing. Like what you were saying earlier, right? If you write out 100 lines every day, even if only a couple of them are good, maybe 3 of them are good, right? Today. But if you keep doing that every day for 6 months from now, a lot more of those lines are going to be good.
Yeah.
Because that's just how you get better at things. Is you're consistent with it, you work at it, you improve, and then over time you just get to a point where you're better at it.
Yeah, you just keep doing stuff, and you get better at it. It's crazy. It's mind blowing stuff, But people, I mean, even myself, I feel like everybody, we all have things where we don't have that consistency, and then we wonder why we're not where it is. I know a lot of people have that same thing for fitness and stuff like that too, where it's like, man, I wish I could bench X number of weight or whatever it is, or I wish I could do this many pull-ups, and it's like, well, if you got in the gym every day and you did, maybe you had someone spot you and you did a couple half pull-ups every single day for the next however long, you're going to be doing those 10 pull-ups, whatever. So it boils down to consistency in a lot of aspects of life will help you for sure. Now, I noticed there was another key piece of advice that I kind of picked out and I thought was pretty interesting from your page, which was you don't need to get on as many platforms as possible, and that can sometimes be almost damaging if you do so.
Yeah,
And
100%.
I kind of wanted you to elaborate on that for people that don't understand, because a lot of people that are prominent in social media spaces and stuff are gonna always like, when LinkedIn was hot, it's you gotta get on LinkedIn, you gotta get on LinkedIn right now, blah 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 blah, or Twitter's hot, you gotta get on whatever it is. I remember Clubhouse was recently. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not really nearly as big anymore, but it
but
was huge
died.
for a few months. Yeah.
Almost 93% of all of its users.
Oh God, that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
or something
That's
like that.
crazy.
I could be wrong, but
But
like it
it was
lost a
like the
crazy
next
amount.
big thing for a minute, though. It was the
Yeah,
next. Everyone was, and I love Gary Vee. There's a lot of good stuff that he says, but that was something too where get out. You got to get on Clubhouse. Like, you got to get on blah 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 blah. And it's like, sometimes I don't, I want to understand what the hell is going on this app
mhm,
before I want to be a part of it, and maybe I want to get it and just watch other people's content for a minute, kind of understand how it works before I jump in.
yeah.
But like, I kind of wanted to get back to what you said with the don't get on as many platforms as possible because it can be damaging. Now, what do you mean by that?
So here's the thing, right? Every single social media platform is very different, and they're all extremely complex. Instagram is a very different platform than YouTube. TikTok is a very different platform than Instagram, although they're starting to get slightly more similar at this point. But every platform is different, and you don't really want to be good or even great at any platform. You want to be amazing at 1 to 2 platforms, and then you can worry about expanding. Because the thing is that if you want to get really amazing results, if you want to be able to get to 1 million followers, if you want to get to 1 million subscribers, whatever it is, you need to be really amazing at using that platform. So how do you do that when you're on 5 different platforms at a time? Right? It's even kind of with the consistency thing that we were talking about earlier. It's extremely difficult to start being consistent at 5 different things at the same time. Like we're just not good at that. So if you focus on one platform, usually I say 2 platforms. Pick one for growth and one for connection. So one platform that you can use to get in front of a lot more people, and then one platform that you can use that you can really show who you are and connect with people and turn them into your fans. You gotta you gotta learn the ins and outs, the little intricacies, how the algorithms work, what the differences are, even like what posting frequency. What's going to happen if you post 3 times a week on Instagram versus if you post every single day? What happens if you post 5 stories a day? If you post 10 stories a day? What happens if you post 3 of the same posts in a row, or if you post 3 different types of posts in a row? Right? Like you really understanding it and really getting amazing and understanding that platform at a really deep level is what's going to be and what's going to take you to that next level. What's going to help you get that really consistent, gigantic growth. Like if you're just focusing on all these different things at once and trying to learn all of them, it's going to be very, very, very difficult.
Spreading yourself too thin, almost.
Exactly.
You don't have enough to go around. Yeah,
Mhm.
I know it's a tough thing, and I know that's something that I personally have struggled with the with TikTok being as popular as it is, and wanting to jump on over there, and not really getting it at first, and sort of like slowly getting into it, and I know when I started it, it was more when I was releasing music. I've been releasing music regularly for a while now, but
Mhm.
when I first got on TikTok, it was more when I was kind of getting my YouTube off the ground and wanting to do some more comedy stuff over there, and then sort of switching to music, and had varying success in each, but it, like you said, everything is very different, and so what people want to see over there versus what they want to see on YouTube versus what they want to see on TikTok, for each individual person, is going to be very different. So I think that is good advice to kind of focus on growing on one, and connecting on maybe another, and then transitioning over. I think that's very interesting advice, and I think for a lot of people that's probably the right way to go about things, because not a lot of people have a whole team to
That's
help
what I was going to say next.
scale their
Yeah.
stuff, and that's a big thing. Have you seen any of these companies that I've seen some recently start coming out that I don't know how they work pricing wise? They say they don't cost any money, and that but I'm sure they're going to take a commission of some sort on whatever you make or they make you. But what
Well,
was the
if
one?
it's free, you are the product. That's another thing to remember too.
That's okay. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. But yeah, that's the thing. I see a lot of these companies now that are willing to like take, for instance, my YouTube channel, right? There's a podcast on there. It's a large portion of the content is the podcast and clips and stuff from it, where they'll take your podcast, they'll chop it up into all these clips, they'll optimize it for Facebook, for TikTok, for everything, and they'll handle all that. And then their goal is to grow your stuff for you. And then apparently somehow they're going to make some money off that. I don't know where, but they're saying they're not going to charge you up front. Not everybody has that though, and not everybody has like a team of people that can do that. So I'm curious to see if any of these companies are actually worth it. I haven't obviously enrolled in any of them.
I've heard of a couple of them, and I actually know. So my mom is a business coach, and she has done an interview with a guy that does something like that. And I know with his company that it's definitely not like free, and they like charge you. But it's easier when it's a video content, like a platform, because it's easier to repurpose. But even then, like I still would just recommend just pick 1 to 2 platforms and spend most of your time focusing on that. Because even if you do put it up, like how do you know people are actually going to see it? Right? You need to optimize it, and you need to be on that platform, interacting with people, talking with people, right? Leaving comments, direct messaging people. It's not like you just put it up and just, it's going to go viral and it's going to like work out. No, you got to be on there. You got to interact with people, especially in the beginning. And like you have to kind of build that core fan base. Once you can get the ball rolling a little bit, once you can start to monetize that fan base a little bit, then you can start to build up that team. And then that team is going to help you to get on these other platforms to get more and more growth. And then you can really, like, it's like a big snowball rolling down a hill, right? Once it gets going, it'll like push itself. But you got to get to that point before you can get before it gets moving by itself.
How do you find new people that are new potential fans, right? New potential people that might be interested in, and I don't like saying fans specifically, but just like new people that might be interested in what it is that you have to offer content wise, whether that's music, whether that's YouTube, whatever. How do you go about actually like going out and finding them? Because if I post to Instagram, that's going to be seen by, I mean, you would hope it would be seen by all your followers, but it's not going to be. But so it's, it's not even getting seen to by all your followers. But so a small percentage of that, but it's not getting shown to anybody else, unless people are following hashtags and things of that nature. So how do you go about finding or attracting new people to your brand, whatever it is?
There's lots of different ways, and each platform is going to be different, which again, this is why it's so important to pick like a limited number, 1 to 2 platforms, and really get good at getting yourself in front of more people. But we'll stay Instagram right now because I think a lot of people use that. On Instagram, hashtags are a great way, but you can also go and directly engage with people through hashtags or through other people's accounts that has your fan base. So if you are an artist and you make stuff that's kind of like Travis Scott or kind of like Playboi Carti, or just to name a few people, you could go and interact with some of their fans on their page, right? And you can like some of the comments that they leave on the thing, right? And it's kind of a numbers game, right? So if you like 100 comments that someone leaves on a post, maybe 5 to 10 of those people will check you out and like your music. So that's a good way, but there's also lots of other ways. Actually, doing podcast things are another great way to do it. Because you're basically getting in front of another audience, or doing live interviews is another way to do it. When you go live on Instagram, it shows to their audience. If you go live with somebody else, it shows to their audience like, hey, they're live with this person right now. So I think the biggest thing that I can tell you, and this will work on any platform, is coming up with a list of people that already have your fans or already have the people that you want to attract. It's called the Dream 100. At least that's what I've heard it called. And you can look up Dream 100, or I would really recommend getting Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson. He really dives in and explains how this works and talks about it. But basically figuring out who are those people that have my fans, who are they, and how can I work with them and get them to put me in front of their audience. Now, most of the time it's not that simple, right? It's not like you just, hey, put me in front of your audience, right? Yeah. But if you actually start to connect with them, if you consistently show up on their page and you're like showing them like, you're supporting them and you are showing them that you are actually a fan of theirs, and then you start to reach out to them and you really build that relationship, it's a lot easier. So a lot of it is relationship building and networking, and then using those networks to get yourself in front of people. Kind of like what we said with Lil Nas X, right? He already had those connections with all of these other people that have meme pages, and he was able to leverage that to get himself in front of people and really get that ball rolling. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, actually. I think I think there's a lot of valuable information what you just said. What was the book again?
Traffic Secrets. Let's see. I have it right here. Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson.
Okay, Travel Secrets.
He has a couple of different books. They are all fantastic.
Very
.com Secrets. If you want to, so that one's about getting in front of more people. And then there's .com Secrets, which is more about monetizing those people, right? Getting that traffic and turning it into money via a funnel. So we can talk about funnels if you want, but that's a whole.
Yeah, I think we might get in it if we have a little bit of time towards the end. I wanted to have you elaborate on this as well. I saw you said, it doesn't matter how amazing your marketing tactics are if you don't have a marketing strategy.
Yeah.
And that a lot of people, some people might confuse both of those things, think that's the same thing, tactics and strategy. Now I wanted you to sort of, maybe you can distinguish both for the listeners here, and then we can get into both and what you need to do in order to have successful marketing campaigns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll use that example that I talked about earlier, right? Let's say you're going to Travis Scott's account, you like the comments. That's a tactic. It's the actual small thing that you're doing to get in front of more people. But if you don't understand why that actually works, what it is that you're doing there, right? And you're just going to everybody and you're just liking a bajillion comments, and you're not getting in front of the right people or targeting people, it doesn't really matter that much. You're not going to get very good results. So tactic is basically the individual little piece with a little step that you're doing, whereas a strategy is like the big picture. It's the idea. It's the why this is working and what it is that you're actually doing. So you can actually, in chess, right? Tactic is one little thing, one little sequence where maybe you can win a piece. Whereas a strategy is okay, well, we're going to do all of these moves, and eventually in the end, I'm going to be in a better position. So it's kind of like that long-term vision versus the tactic, which is the short-term vision. You can have lots of tactics, but if you don't have that long-term vision, that long-term plan, you don't understand why this is actually happening, why you have all of these tactics in a row, it's not really going to matter all that much.
Yeah, you might be doing some things that could potentially hurt you if you're doing, maybe things in the same lane or incorrect sort of tactics and whatnot. I like that. I think that's something like you said with the liking people's comments and stuff like that. I know, I'm trying to think of who he was. There was an artist I was listening to recently. He's an up and coming artist, but he's got a couple of songs with a couple million streams. I can't remember his name. He was on some podcast I was listening to, and he mentioned that how he had basically not blown up, but gotten to where he is currently, which is on the rise, has a couple of labels reaching out and stuff like that, is from, he was in different fan, group chat, he was in a Childish Gambino fan account, or Discord thing. And he basically met friends through there. And then some of them found out that he did music, spread it to people in their local town. And then basically he ended up with this big song, which was pretty crazy. And so I think that is a big part of it is actually building connection. And like you said, if you're just liking a bunch of stuff just to like stuff and you're just leaving, spam comments on everything, that's not really going to help you. But if you're actually finding people, maybe not even like-minded people, but people that would normally, listen to or consume the content, that you're creating, that you're making, I do think that those people, if they have a connection with you, they're going to be more inclined to check it out. I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world, where if you think about it like this, everybody's got, when you start making music or you start doing anything, even if when you're in a bad school play, you got a couple people that are coming to see you in the school play, right? Your mom, your dad, your whatever, whoever it is wants to come support you. A couple people right off the bat. Everybody's got those couple of people. So or at least a couple people that trust them. So if I build a connection with somebody, if I'm on somebody else's podcast or whatever it is, the bare minimum, they have a couple of people that care about them. And if they're like, wow, that person seems like a dope guy, or, a dope gal, whoever it is, I'm going to check out his stuff. I'm going to see whatever. And like you said, it's building connections. So I think that's great advice.
Well, it's long-term too. Your network never really goes away. If you start to really build relationships with people, you can use that for pretty much the rest of your life, as long as you maintain those relationships. It's one of the most valuable tools that you can start using and start growing. It's just who you know and what relationships you have.
Yeah, it is. It's all about who you know. That's what life is, for sure.
Awesome.
Now, what's like the worst mistake that you think any aspiring we'll stick with musicians for this, but I'm sure it could be applicable to other artistries and stuff like that. What's like the worst mistake somebody could do online, like through creating content and whatnot, that to stunt their growth or to almost maybe halt it completely?
Hmm. Well, using some sort of bot, that's always not going to be very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking any sort of like rules of service, you're not like it's not going to help you very much. But really, I think the biggest one that I think most people are actually doing, because I don't think that many people are doing crazy stuff like that, is not targeting deep things correctly. So kind of like what we were saying with liking all the comments on random people, like it's just super easy mistake to make. I made this mistake really badly when I first started, where I was doing all of my engagement. I was liking all these comments and doing all these things with other producers. And I was trying to sell beats. It's very difficult to sell beats when you have a fan base and a following of the producers.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a super, super, super common one. But it's also hard because people don't really know and understand who their fans are or who they're going to potentially be.
Yeah.
So I think first you got to figure out who are your fans, like really get to know and understand them. What is it that they desire and what is it that they fear? Or what is it that causes them pain? Those are kind of the two core like human things, especially in marketing, is desire and pain.
Yeah.
Because you want to take people and show them that you can help them achieve their desires, right? In music, it's usually a feeling, like maybe it makes you feel confident. You desire to feel confident, right? Lots of music makes you feel like that. Most like trap music makes you feel like that.
Yeah.
Or it helps you get out of pain, right? So that's a lot more like love music, or even sometimes like sad music, as weird as it is. If it's sad, it actually helps you feel less sad. Even if it makes you feel more sad, it's kind of weird. But
Yeah.
basically looking at those two things and figuring out, okay, well, what is my audience? If I make this type of music, really starting to understand who is this person and how can I get myself in front of them? But that's just a super, super, super common mistake that I made, and I know a lot of other people make, because they don't even think about that. They just try to like put it out there, and they don't really start to understand who their fans are potentially going to be.
Yeah, I think that's something that that a lot of people, even myself, should definitely be considering. Who is it? I liked you said before about kind of creating that what did you refer to it as, a dream list, basically?
Dream
Of
100, yeah.
Dream 100, right? The people that you would hope would be your fans, people that you want to attract. It's sort of, it reminds me of some writing advice that the Russo brothers, the guys who are behind like the big MCU films, the Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame and stuff. They always they explain in all their interviews when people ask them about writing and everything. You want to know where you're going, so they make sure they have the ending completely set in stone, exactly what they want, how they want the ending to go. That way, every move you're making to that point makes sense. And I think it's similar in that, where it's like, if I know the people I would like to attract with this, then I can start devising a plan or strategy and picking those individual tactics to help me get there, basically. Because if you don't know where you're going, then how are you supposed to get anywhere, type of thing.
Exactly.
So I like that.
If you look at those movies, right, superhero movies in general, they're usually all about like togetherness, kind of community, even like sort of defeating the bad guys, right? Like that's what superhero movies are all about. But if you look at every superhero movies, social media, or their marketing, it's all based around that. It all gives people that feeling of like, let's all get together and defeat the bad guys. And that's just one of those core human desires. So this is another big thing too, is for brand archetypes, and really starting to figure out like, who am I and how am I representing myself to people in a way that's going to attract them and pull them in. And brand archetypes are a great way to do that, because it kind of looks at all of those core human like emotions, core human desires. And one of the big ones is like a sense of community, a sense of togetherness. And figure out like, okay, if my audience is desiring this, well, then how can I brand myself in a way that is going to like really represent this to them, that I am the one for them, that I'm going to be able to help them with those things.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's I think it's very crucial advice that people should, especially people around my stage that are trying to make a name for themselves as indie artists, or even maybe if they're signed on a smaller record deal, whatever it is, they got to do stuff on their own. That's what you should be doing. I think you should be listening to a lot of the stuff you've been spitting so far. I appreciate all the gems that you've been dropping. You kind of got into it a little bit. I was going to ask you what the most common mistakes are, but how about what is something every artist should do that maybe that they could like start doing today, like right away? If you were to meet with someone, maybe you had a client, almost every artist, like right away, they're like, "Hey man, Twisted, I want to work with you one-on-one." What is usually like the first thing you're like, "We need to get this in order," or we can do this right now to make things a million times better?
Yeah. It's kind of tough because every artist has different things that they need to work on. But I think 99% of the time, it's figuring out how is it you're marketing and branding yourself? Like, what are those desires? Who are your fans? And how are you grabbing their attention in a really compelling way that's unique to you, but makes them interested? It also calls them out, right? Like, you don't want to just be like every other person out there. You don't want to just be every other artist that's like, hey, new, link in bio, check out my new song, right? It should be interesting. It should be compelling. It should make them want to go listen to that song because it connects with them and it spoke to something that they want, that they either want or want to have less of, right? They want to move towards that desire or get away from that pain. And most people don't do that. So I think that figuring that out and then using that in your marketing is like one of the most important things that most people don't do, but would be a huge one. So especially in that, if you're using like your first 150 characters or whatever, like that hook, your headline, right? Make it snag their attention, make it grab them, make it them understand that this is going to help them achieve their desires and get away from it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think I think copy is something that a lot of people kind of just leave to the wayside when it comes to music and stuff like that, especially where like we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, a lot of people just want to and we're all guilty of it, where we wish we could just make the art and then let the art be the art, but you just can't. And that's why even the biggest artists in the world, they don't do that. They got, at least somebody is tweeting out the fact that they dropped the album. Somebody, even if it's not them, somebody on the team is doing something for them to make sure that's where it needs to be. So I definitely agree with that. I think it's just really interesting, all the different ways that artists can go about marketing their music. And I know there's been a little bit of a conversation about this on TikTok. I've seen it where people are sort of showing a little bit of frustration, where it seems like certain people are tailoring their music to potentially TikTok or something, maybe trying to market their music in the art itself. And I don't know, I was curious to see what you thought about that, where should I be, as an artist, or should someone as an artist be considering, when they're in their creative process, should they be considering how certain people are going to react to this, or should they just be making what is pure to them in its most artistic form?
That's a good question. So it is tough. Like, you want to be authentic and do what you want, and really allow the music to be itself and be a reflection of who you are as a person. But at the same time, it does need to be sort of changed in a way.
Palatable.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that there is a way to get the best of both worlds. But I think a lot of it, you have to be very self-aware of who you are and what is actually a good platform or a good way of getting yourself out there. Some people are really, really good with video. Some people are really good with long video. Some people are really good with short video. Some people aren't good with video at all. Maybe they're good with like photos, right? And figuring out like, okay, what is the best way that I can do this? And then doing it in your unique way and using your music to get on top of that. Right. So basically, I think that there is a way to do it and still be authentic and still have your music be a part of who you are and reflect who you are, and still represent yourself equally.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that it is a balancing act a little bit, because it's like, you shouldn't be, I don't think any artist should be in the studio creating, when you're feeling these, especially when you're doing any art, you're basically feeling or expressing heightened emotions. You shouldn't be trying to tailor that to a specific audience, but you should, it maybe as you're, maybe when you're finishing up a song or something like that, be like, man, I don't know if this specific part here is really going to make sense for what, my fans have come to, and maybe this is something I love, and my fans aren't really ready for it yet. How do I get them ready for it? Maybe I could segue this. Maybe I can drop some music that, eases them into this, where this change isn't so whatever. And there've been artists that do the 180, and it's been successful for sure. But I do think that like you said, it's possible to do both, but it's definitely something to think about for artists, where it's like you don't want to lean too far. You don't want to be making this super crazy abstract stuff that no one gets and no one, whatever. And maybe you do, and you do that for yourself, and it's fulfilling, and you love that, and that's just for you. But if you're trying to be like a musician that is, maybe profiting off your music and stuff like that, you have to kind of ride that line and be like, I need to make music that is, like I mentioned before, palatable to a wider audience.
I think too. So there's different types of music at the same time, right? Like there's singles, and then there's your album, or your more of like your complete work. Your singles, they really need to be like super on brand. They need to be marketable. They need to be like get yourself out there. And I think that there's still a way for you to do that in an authentic way. But then when you drop an album, the people that are going to actually listen through the whole album are really going to be your true hardcore fans. And that's when you can have some of those more abstract songs, some of those things that you just want to get out there and kind of play with. And some people are really going to love that. They're going to connect with that. I know some of my favorite songs from my favorite artists are some of the weird ones. Some of the songs on the album that is not the single, that's like, oh, this is kind of crazy, different. I like what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's, for me personally, I'm a huge Drake fan, and I know a lot of people roll their eyes when people bring up Drake because he's got all these hits, but Drake's album cuts are my favorites. Like when he just has like 40 does the beat, or Boy Wonder does the beat, and it's this just like melodramatic, like slowed down, and he's just giving you like gem after gem of whether it like bar after bar, and it's just him, almost feels like he's speaking right to you. Now that song, most of the times, other than the Lemon Pepper freestyle one, which actually wasn't a single, that was part of that little 3-pack he did. So I guess but those are never the singles. They're Do Not Disturb on I forget the name of the project. More Life is the outro to that album. Probably my favorite song on that whole album. One of my favorite Drake songs. That's not the single. That would never be the single. But like you said, there is definitely a way to kind of implement the more truer sense of who you are, while also being, a more profitable musician, I guess you could say.
You just have to be smart and self-aware enough to realize, okay, these 3 songs are going to be the ones that I need to make singles and I need to really focus my promotion on. And then these, 5 or whatever songs I can put on the album, make them a little bit more like special edition cuts or whatever it is,
Yeah.
A lot of it is self-awareness. It's a huge thing. It's like really understanding who you are, who are your fans, and how do you represent that?
Yeah, do you think there's you mentioned, in the specific example you gave, where it's like, oh, these 3 are gonna be my singles, these ones are gonna be the on the album. How do you like, for maybe somebody, now I know I have my own system of how I go about it, but like, do you think that it's important that artists have maybe somebody, obviously, especially starting out, you don't have an A&R, you don't have, maybe your own producer manager or anything like that. How important is it to have somebody that, even if you are self-aware, even if you are whatever, you're super attached to that art? We all are attached. It's your baby. You made it. How do you go about bringing in maybe a second opinion to be like, yeah, no, that's not the single, dude. It's this one. Do you think that should be solely up to the artist?
I think if you have friends that are into your type of music that you make, obviously ask them, right? But even just put it on your Instagram story, put a snippet on it, see how people react to it, right? Put a poll on there. I'm a huge analytics guy. Like, look at your analytics, really dive in, really look at it, and try to get as many opportunities as you can to create analytics, right? Putting those polls up and seeing how people react to it is a great way to kind of learn about what people want, what people don't want, what you should do more of, what you should do less of, all that kind of stuff. And you can do that for your posts, but even for your music too. Like, but looking at your analytics and really understanding that is definitely super, 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 super important.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to I like the example with the polls and stuff too. That's a really good way, putting the snippet up. That's a great way to kind of gauge like I was thinking this one's a single, and if everyone loves it, you're like I was right. That should be the single, or vice versa if it isn't. Now, we're getting close to the hour here. So, is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you really wanted to get into before we end up wrapping today?
Yes, monetizing. It's definitely. I think a lot of people get scared by it because they're like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, I don't really know how to do that." But like, I don't think it's actually as scary as a lot of people would think.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different ways that you can start doing it now. And the thing is that you don't need to have a gigantic fan base to start monetizing that fan base. So I actually have a free training at my Instagram bio, and I talk a lot about that. But basically, you have 1,000 hardcore fans, right? And each of them pays you $10 a month. That's $10,000 a month. So, of course, it's going to take you a little while to get up to that point. But if you focus on getting these people to sign up for something that's $10 a month, or you can kind of average it out. So maybe some of them are giving you $1, and some of them are giving you, $100 or whatever it is. But start like thinking about that. Start thinking, okay, how can I get to 1,000 true fans, 1,000 people that love me, that want to support me? They're going to give me a little bit of their money every month or every whatever amount of time that can support me a little bit. Because like we are a business, right? Artists are business. Everyone in music is a business. And if you start thinking and operating like a business and you start focusing a little bit on this money and on bringing in some income, it can really help support you and get you to that next level, right? So if, let's say you have even 100 fans, right? 100 fans at $10 a month. Well, that's $1,000, right? And then you can start to actually reinvest some of that money back into yourself. So whether it's buying new equipment or buying even Instagram ads or Facebook ads or YouTube ads or whatever it is that you want to use. And the thing with the funnel is that the funnel is an automated system, basically, of taking people from being unaware of who you are, completely unaware, to knowing who you are and wanting to invest in you, wanting to give you that $10 a month. And it really, for me, what I teach my clients is using their content to warm people up, build that connection, and then to get them into I usually like a Patreon. I think I saw that you actually have a Patreon yourself. Yep. But getting them interested in that, right? And this is what we do in my coaching program. Is we really go through and set this whole funnel up. But it gets very, very complex. It does. Funnels are not easy to set up. But the thing is that when you do get them set up, when you do get them operating, then you can start to put some money back into the funnel, and it's actually going to start to scale up, where you're putting in $1, but you're making $2 back. Yeah. So then you can say, okay, well, if I'm putting in $1 and I'm making $2, well, then I can drop in $1,000 and I'm going to make $2,000 back. Yeah. Well, I can take that $2,000 and put it back in. I'm going to make $4,000. So I'm going to make $4,000 and get $8,000. All this time, you're getting people on your email list, right? Email lists are very important because you actually own that list. The thing with all these social media platforms is you don't have any control or own any of that. Right? They could turn off your account, delete it, and you wouldn't have anything. The email list, they can't do that. You have legal ownership over that list, and you can send them emails whenever they want. They can, of course, unsubscribe from your email list, right? But if you're maintaining your relationship with them and you are respecting them and actually providing them values in your emails, they shouldn't be doing that. But once they get on your email list, then you can continue to build that relationship, continue to make them offers, and you continue to make money off of them, right? So as you're scaling up, then you're also saying, okay, well, now I have 5,000 people or whatever it is on my email list. Well, that doesn't go away. You can continue making money off of that. So, okay, you put in $1,000 and you make $2,000 back this month, but then you also have all these extra people on your email list, and that's going to continue growing, continue making you money as you continue to go. So start thinking about funnels.
Yeah, what should you include in when you're trying to grow an email list? What is the value like that you should be trying to let your people that you would potentially want to join that email list? What is the value that you would want to be giving them? Is this like a weekly newsletter? Is this some sort of exclusive deals that you're giving them, other than, because obviously the one of the biggest benefits to email lists and when people have like the automatic texting things set up is direct contact when when you do finally drop or you have the merch and you're like, yo, here it is. I like you said, you own that exactly, so you don't have to post it to Instagram and hope that the algorithm shows everybody that you have this new sweatshirt out. You can just be like, yo, here's my new sweatshirt. But other than like the sell, what is like the value that you would be providing first from growing that email list? Because that's what I think a lot of people, a lot of artists, maybe are like unaware. Maybe it's a little bit of imposter syndrome where it's like, well, why would anybody want to subscribe to my email list? Like, what am I even doing? Like, I don't subscribe to an email list. Why should I do it? So what would your that's true. That's true. Yeah. What would be your advice there on the kind of value you should be providing?
I think that is a good question. And it kind of comes down to like what the artist's fan base is and who they are. So I know this guy, he is really into yoga and meditation, and that's like his whole thing. So he bases a lot of his music around that. And one of the things I had sort of recommended to him was like, hey man, tie that in with the rest of your stuff. Maybe, on your email list, for example, maybe every week they get 5 meditation tips or something like that, right? So that's one thing. You can tie it in with other aspects of your life. They're going to line up with your brand and who you are. But you can again do other stuff like you were saying, with doing exclusive access to songs, so they get early access, or maybe they get some, even one thing I saw was doing like free merch, right? They can get entered into a raffle. Maybe you drop, you give out 1 free sweatshirt or whatever every month, and they can sign up to your email list and they get entered into the raffle to win. Yeah. So that's a great way. There's lots of different ways. A lot of it comes down to those who you are and what you want to offer them and what you can offer them that's going to be a little bit special, a little bit different than everybody else. Because if it's like everyone else, if you're just like, hey, you're on my email list and, I'll tell you when my new song's coming out. They're like, well, whatever, like, I'll just see it on Instagram. You want to make it compelling. So think about who or what it is that you are, what your brand is, and how you can make it interesting for them that they can actually join up to your email list.
Yeah, that's great advice, man. That is, I really appreciate that. I think that's email lists are, I feel like they are spoken about a lot more now. I think people are becoming a little bit more hip to them, which is good. It's a positive. But yeah, they're very important, and I think people should begin starting to kind of get theirs together. I know I've slowly but surely been acquiring some myself. I know, and two, I mentioned the Patreon and stuff like that. I know something that I do, and as well as I'm sure other artists do too, is over my Patreon. Not only do we do extra stuff for the YouTube channel with like extra access to exclusive podcasts and different things like that, but also for the music, where I do how I make all my songs. So every song that I've made, I break down exactly how I've made it, and we sit down at the DAW and I talk right to the audience that way. So I think that is something that's definitely something that artists should consider doing, like you said, to start monetizing. Even though you don't have millions and millions of fans yet, there are things you can do to help get a little bit of cash flow to start reinvesting into the fans you do have, so that they can maybe go get you some more in that. Exactly. In that kind of sense. So, man, I appreciate you being here today, Twisted. It's been a pleasure talking to you, kind of picking your brain, and hopefully some other artists that once we share this around and stuff like that are going to be able to get to see some of this and learn from it. So, I really appreciate you coming through and giving us the advice that you have.
Absolutely, man. Happy to be here, and thank you so much for having me. I always love just talking with people about this stuff and trying to spread the message a little bit more. My whole goal with all of this is to eventually revolutionize the music industry and really give artists a clear, consistent path for them to start building and monetizing that fan base, make that a little bit easier without needing to sign to a label or spend, 5 to 10 years trying to learn how to use social media stuff. So I'm always happy to just spread my word a little bit more and hopefully help out some people.
Well, we're happy to listen, man. Appreciate that. I also want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in live, or those listening days after, or watching this here on YouTube days after. Shout out to the Spotify listeners and Apple podcast listeners as well. Also want to say thank you to our patrons for supporting the channel. It should be up on the screen now. If you're interested in supporting the channel, we post exclusive content, including podcasts, behind the scenes videos, as well as how I make all my music. over there. You can go to patreon.com/Darren Rita to do that. It's also linked down below. Also, shout out to Kenosha Auto Insurance for sponsoring this episode. And this has been the 110th episode of the Detox Podcast. And we are